Sarah, we are in the Judean desert. We've seen the Dead Sea. Go ahead.
I was going to say, are you sure there's
water.
water behind us?
Yeah, there's water back there. That's Ein Gedi. So we're at Ein Gedi, and Ein Gedi means spring of the kid. And we've seen some kids, haven't we?
Oh yeah, they're having fun down there.
So we just came back from standing there by the waterfall. It's just one of several. And you asked me, where does that water come from out here in the desert? Well, I'm having to speculate, but my assumption is the Judean hills, Jerusalem, receives the water, the rain. It comes down through the rock and it pops out here. We're at a lower elevation, and so it pops out. I'll tell you a story. I was out here many years ago with a group. I was actually just south of here, north of Masada, out on the desert. I didn't think anyone would ever see us out there. We were in the middle of nowhere. And we had just come across Highway 90 that runs along the Dead Sea. It was dry. Skies were blue like today. And all of a sudden, some guy who's a park ranger in a Jeep comes running up. I guess he was just going to go all through the park, see if he can find anyone who's alive out there. And there we are. And he says, get out of here fast.
Why?
He said, it's fixing to flood. Yeah, exactly. We're all looking like, what's he talking about? We're in an area that's a desert, there's no water, it's dry, the skies are blue, and he said it's fixing to flood. But he was the authority, and so I said to my group, let's get going. And so we headed back up Highway 90 to the north, and sure enough, we got there, and already some of the highway had been washed out that we had just crossed 30 minutes earlier. It had washed out. A truck had just arrived with barriers going to put up so no one can cross the highway. I said to my driver, go. With a lot of concern on her part. She was really afraid that that was a dangerous thing to do, but I knew we were going to get stuck down here, maybe for days. And so I said, go. So that was a wadi. That's a dry riverbed. And we had had rains the night before in Jerusalem. And so the water hit those hills, and it takes time to come here. But I mean, it can be a violent river. Go to YouTube and you can see some dramatic footage of a wadi that's dry, and 10 minutes later, it is a raging river. Water maybe 4 or 5 feet deep, raging. So many people died out here because of that. They've been down, they didn't realize the force of that water. It just rolls boulders and so forth. Well, there's been water out here forever in this spot. The green is here because of this water coming down from the mountains, going down to the Dead Sea. King David lived here at one point. He lived here when he was hiding from Saul. I'll tell you about that in a minute. First, I want to just emphasize one other thing. You would rather be here with some shade, some water, it's pleasant, than out there in that desert. It was hot when we were on the desert. We should recognize that we have something that's beautiful that needs to be shared. Evangelism means good, first part of the word, angel, messenger, good message. We have a good message to share, and it needs to be shared. Let me read something that occurred in the Old Testament that I think is parallel. This is from 2 Kings 7. The men who had leprosy reached the edge of the camp. What camp? The Syrian camp. They were at Samaria, and they were going to die. It was under siege, and these men with leprosy said, listen, it'd be better to die quickly with the sword than to die slowly, starving to death. Let's just go on out to them. And so they did. They reached the edge of the camp and entered one of the tents. They ate and drank and carried away silver, gold, and clothes and went off and hid them. They returned and entered another tent and took some things from it and hid them also. Then they said to each other, we are not doing right. This is a day of good news, and we are keeping it to ourselves. If we wait until daylight, punishment will overtake us. Let's go at once and report this to the royal palace. They had really good news. That army had been destroyed, and all the wealth and food that they needed was right there, and they were going to keep it to themselves and hide that wealth. And then they realized You know, God's going to punish us if we don't share this. We have people starving to death in the city. Let's go back and tell. To me, that's the same message we have. We have good news that needs to be shared, and sometimes we're afraid to. It's a brother, a sister, a friend that we know they don't want to hear it. And so we have to use wisdom. We have to use good judgment. But we've got something worth more than all the gold and silver in the world, and it needs to be shared.
So what is it?
We have the good news about Jesus coming, died for us, and that there's an eternity that we can have glorious blessings beyond imagination, and it's just around the corner. Life is just a vapor. It's just a vapor.